If you're like me and your camera kit keeps on getting bigger and bigger, then you've likely considered something like this. The Peter Design 45 litre travel bag. What's up guys, my name's George, I'm a freelance video marketer based in the north of England. On this channel I share content all around tech, filmmaking and freelancing, so if that is your vibe, then hit subscribe and welcome to the channel. Today we are taking a look at this Peter Design 45 litre travel backpack. I picked this up a few months ago and it took me quite a lot not to make a video on this straight away because I wanted to give it a few months of use, taking on a few different projects with different carrying amounts, going to different places to figure out just what I think of it and if it is worth the money, because it's not super cheap. It has gone down in price this year, only a little bit, but it's still up there, you know. It's tricky. I ended up using this bag after coming from having an old LowePro camera backpack and then a couple of more casual backpacks with camera inserts put into those. And as my camera kit grew and the jobs I was doing were more professional, I wanted something that was more substantial. I could carry most of the kit on my own just in one bag, apart from like a light stand or a larger tripod, for example. The other bags I was considering at the time before purchasing this one were the LowePro Protactic, the newer one, I think the 450AW or 350, whichever one it is, and the Peter McKinnon Nomatic backpack. Both of those seem to have advantages and disadvantages, which I couldn't really decide on. I was sort of looking at those two and thinking, the Protactic LowePro seems far too photography centric, and I mean that in the sense that it essentially is just a photography bag. Similar to this LowePro bag, it's a great bag, really well designed if you're a photographer, but if you ever want to use this bag for anything else, it's quite limited. I have done that in the past. I've gone somewhere using just sort of the camera insert section for putting like toiletries and like my laptop charger, the laptop in the laptop section, and a few clothes in the top section there, but it's just not what it's designed for, and of course it isn't. But it's kind of annoying when you've got to have multiple bags for making these sort of things work. Next to the Protactic was the Peter McKinnon Nomatic backpack, and it has a fairly similar design sensibility to the Peter Design in the way that it is trying to be more than one thing at once, but it still does have a very photographer-centric, larger compartment, which luckily this Peter Design does not have. After the same extensive research I'm sure you're currently doing, which this may be part of, videos you've watched, different articles you might have read, I landed on the Peter Design backpack. And do I regret buying it? No. Nope. It's the best made. It's the most well-made product I've ever owned. Hands down. Hands down. It's like if I'm a Windows user, but it's like if Apple made a backpack. It's the most well-designed, most well-thought-out, most problem-solved little nitpicky backpack ever. Like every single thing you might have thought of, they already thought of it and they already fixed it. It's fantastic. A little bit on my thoughts on it so far. The first thing that I really noticed when I picked up the bag, and just the bag on its own without any accessories, without anything inside, is that it's not the lightest bag in the world. It weighs in at about 2.5 kilograms, which doesn't sound like an awful lot of weight, especially when it's just on your back. But if you think that some airline allowances, in the EU anyway, can be, you know, up to about 10 kilograms. So 2.5 is already a quarter of your baggage allowance, which isn't ideal, especially when you're going to be filling it up with things like laptops and cameras and lenses, which all carry quite a lot of weight in themselves. Luckily, a lot of the weight in this bag is made up of better quality materials. So it's not like they've just put on loads of heavy materials that don't really matter. They've really spent time and thought about what's the most durable, what's weatherproof, and what's going to protect you and your gear. You've likely heard all of this already. This thing is extremely well built. Like it's just so bloody good. Like it's I'm not trying to just advertise the bag, by the way. I do actually have some negatives on this bag coming up later in the video. You can skip ahead if you just want to hear all the negatives, but we've got some positives to go. We've got some positives to go, because it's amazing. It's got hidden straps. It's got magnets. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. The high quality materials they decided to use on this include waterproof nylon, EVA foam, and even leather logo badges. From a purely cosmetic standpoint, and I'll get over the cosmetic side of things, from a purely cosmetic standpoint, it is the nicest bag I've ever seen or used or held or owned. It's just great. One of the things that should not matter this much, but it just does, is the way they decided to hide straps. You'll notice at the moment, this is just sort of in a carry-on sort of deal. You've got straps all over on every side, just trying to make it as simple as possible. When you want to get out your shoulder straps or your waist straps, they're hidden behind these convenient magnets that literally that will then pull out your shoulder strap and then your waist strap if you need it. And then that little magnet strap just goes, and it's just there. It's so good. There's no detaching. There's no like overly faffiness. It's just things like that. Things like that. And even when this is on your back, being able to sort of just reach behind, pop out the bottom magnet and bring out the waist strap. Also very, very simple. Down the sides of the bags next to the straps, we also have space for water bottles or something like a compact tripod if you could fit something like that in there. Even a small gimbal, but obviously be careful where you're going and what you're doing with the bag if you are going to put something like a gimbal in one of these. The overall well-designed factor does extend past purely cosmetic and magnet features. Speaking of magnets, there's also some more magnets. Oh, who knew? Who knew one could be so satisfied by magnets? At the bottom here, we also have some extra carrying straps that live behind one set of magnets. And these very nice nylon straps, oh, they're a bit tangled at the moment. These very nice nylon straps that are used for strapping other bits of kit onto the bag. Well, I'm just gonna pop my straps back in. Ooh-wee. Love it. I love it. When you get the bag and you start filling it with everything you might need on a shoot or on a trip, you start to realize that this thing is actually seriously hard to fill. It's got a 35 litre capacity, but it's extendable up to 45 litres. When they say extendable, what they mean is, on the front section of the bag where we have some front storage that I'll show you soon, there is also some zips at the bottom that act as extenders for the front capacity. You just zip that like that on both sides, and that puffs out and gives you an extra 10 litres of room. The bulk of the area is accessible via the back zips, which are decent heavy duty zips. These things are amazing and weather sealed around the zip as well. This then brings down to show you the majority of the space. This is where most of the 35 litres worth of space lives. Within this, you also have some other pockets that are accessible from both sides, and also the laptop and tablet compartment which lives up at the top. This back section of space is also accessible, you can get through to via here. So you just have this big empty bag hoop. And then these side sections are also accessible down here, meaning that sooner or later it just sort of becomes this big empty bag space, which means it's totally usable however you want, mate. I haven't actually done that since I first got it. It just becomes this big floppy massive bag. Just gonna reconstruct this for a second. Within the larger capacity section of the bag, these little loops here allow you to connect other Peak Design accessories like the medium camera cube and other things. I use the medium camera cube with this, which takes up 2 of the 3 cube spaces, as Peak Design call it. I tend to fit in the medium camera cube, which would go down here, for example, and then you can fit something like the tech pouch or one of their clothing compactors in the top. But you can actually fit a lot more in here than you might think. The medium camera cube does take up a lot of space, so if you are going to be taking kit, this is going to fit most of what you would need in a camera kit, unless you're going down a multicam setup, you might want to get the larger camera cube, which does extend all the way up to the top. That does mean the entire bag is being used by camera kit and you won't really have any extra space for things like the tech pouch. Along with the medium camera cube, I also picked up the tech pouch. Without sounding dramatic, it has changed the way that I store all of my little bits of tech. When you're in filmmaking, freelancing, one-man productions, or even a small team productions, the amount of little pieces of tech, things like external hard drives, SD cards, lens cloths, batteries, filters, etc, 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 that you just have in various little pouches around the bag, having one place where all that can live and be totally comfortable with the amount of room is fantastic. So if you are considering the travel bag, I highly recommend getting the tech pouch along with whatever camera cube you decide on getting as well. I will be covering both the medium camera cube and the tech pouch in more detail in a couple of future videos over the next week or so be sure to subscribe so you do not miss those. For getting the accessories like the camera cube and the tech pouch, in terms of one bag travel, the Peak design manages to do a lot of things that other camera bags cannot. As I mentioned with my LowePro and also the Protactic, those are purely built around photographers in mind. So for example, with this LowePro, great bag, compartmentalized, 4 cameras, slot things in, lenses, etc. And that's just what it is. That's all you get in this bag. It's a fantastically well-made bag, but that is what it is. Whereas with the Peak design, you can take out the medium camera cube as we have right now, and then you could not take a camera at all and have a fantastic, great carry-on suitcase essentially. If you just loaded this up with clothes for a holiday or something like that, it's great. I never personally would, because why would I not take a camera and a gimbal and everything else with me? But if you were to get this bag and then decide you wanted to go on a totally non-camera related trip, what are those? But if you wanted to go on one of those, you could totally do that and have a great time. You'd have a fab time. It'd be great. It'd be great. We'd love it. On the front side of the bag, we have a lot more storage, including the expandable storage that I showed you earlier. At the very, very top, we have a nice little pouch that's sort of like a microfiber material. You can fit sunglasses in, lens cloths, various things like that. I tend to just keep like a camera battery in here, maybe a spare SD card that I need handy, lens cloths, a rocket blower, and a lens brush. And that tends to just live in there in case I'm midway through a shoot and I don't want to go in to the tech pouch. I just want something that's easily grabbable right there and then. Also on the front, we have all of this storage that genuinely might not look like an awful lot, but you actually get 4 different compartmentalized zip pouches that you can also access from the other side. Got one netted here, one opaque there, another opaque on the bottom side of there, and then one big webbed section that I particularly like. I don't really know why they went webbed there and then netted on this side, but fantastic. It works really, really well. And then once you do expand this on both sides, you then gain this bit of extra space. And doing this, I managed to fit in quite a lot more kit into here when I've really packed this bag full for a shoot, which I will be showing you in a future video. This thing gets very, very full, but also very, very heavy. In terms of comfort and carrying the bag for an extended period of time, I think it depends on how much weight you actually have in the bag. This leads me on to the negative point I have about this bag. As much as I love it, and I think it's probably the most well-designed thing I've ever used, which I will stand by, the main negative for me is the fact that this thing gets heavy, and this thing gets seriously heavy. And sometimes when I think I haven't really put that much in it, in the grand scheme of things, this thing still gets very heavy. Say if I have the medium camera cube in with 1 mirrorless camera body, 2 to 4 lenses, a microphone, a gimbal, a large LED light, which fair enough, a laptop and a tablet, and some power banks and various things in the tech pouch, this thing gets to be very, very heavy. And I've sometimes passed the bag to people to say like, does this feel crazy heavy to you? I'll give it to them and they'll start to topple over, and then I realize that, oh wait, this should not be this heavy. I'm carrying way too much stuff right now. And that is kind of down to the user, but at the same time, the fact that the bag itself already provides 2.5 kilos of that weight. It doesn't exactly make your life easier in that sense. So I would say to be extra mindful when you are packing the bag in terms of how long you're realistically going to be walking somewhere, for example. Are you taking public transport? How many taxis are you getting? Is it a flying thing, or are you just taking it in the car and only walking with it for a couple of minutes at a time? Those sort of things you need to think about when you're taking kit anywhere with any sort of bag when it comes to photography or filmmaking. But I think with this bag especially, just how heavy I've had this thing sometimes, I have thought either I need to bring less stuff, or I need a lighter bag, or I just need to get stronger. It's a weird thing in terms of packing this thing to the brim, because it's impressive how much it can fit in, but sometimes it's not good for your skeleton. So be safe out there, people. Be safe out there. Now, do I recommend this bag? The answer is a hard, strong, passionate yes. It's absolutely amazing. As I mentioned before with the LowePro bags and other photography bags, which are structured from the ground up to be photography minded, they lack versatility, where this bag actually does have versatility. Everything about this bag, in terms of it being a multi-purpose backpack for travel or for photography shoots, they have just nailed it. Absolutely everything. The weight factor, which is it's a very big factor, and that's the biggest problem for me. But that factor is outweighed by the fact that this is just so versatile and you can use it on anything with any kit, or on a holiday and it still feel just as normal. Often with other photography bags, you're having to decide between, do I take my pure camera bag or a smaller camera bag and a travel bag? Whereas with Pete Design, they've managed to create one bag that provides multiple variations. So even though this thing does cost a fair bit of money, fairly similar to the LowePro Protactic or the Peter McKinnon Nomatic backpack, it's absolutely worth it. The build quality, the versatility, and the overall durability make it an absolute no-brainer. Thank you very, very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you have found it helpful. If you have any specific questions about this backpack, please leave them in the comment section below. I have a number of videos coming out with this backpack in the near future, focusing on the tech pouch, the medium camera cube, and what I pack in this camera bag on an average video shoot. I'm gonna try and do one that's a bit more heavier, so it's like packing absolutely everything in that I think you can pack in. So be sure to stick around for that and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Remember to like this video, and until next time, I'm out.
You like la la